With the current global unrest, particularly in the conflicts of the Ukraine and the Middle East, the world seems to be moving towards the common error of mistaking silence for harmony. Because a room is quiet, we suppose that everyone inside is content. Yet there is a silence that belongs to contemplation, and there is another that belongs to fear. The first is the peace of a monastery. The second is the peace of a prison. It is a dangerous economy of thought that counts both under the same heading. We are forever told that peace is merely the absence of war, as though health were merely the absence of screaming. A man may cease crying because he has recovered, but he may also cease because he has died. Statistics can distinguish neither joy from despair nor justice from surrender. They merely report that the noise has stopped. Indeed, there are governments which pride themselves upon preserving order with such perfect efficiency that no voice dares rise above a whisper. There are societies in which every man knows his appointed place, not because he has freely embraced it, but because generations have taught him never to imagine another. There are empires whose roads are wonderfully safe because every traveler has long ago learned that resistance is hopeless. Such arrangements may produce remarkable tranquility, but tranquility is not the same thing as peace, any more than stillness is the same thing as life. An apartheid state may know long periods without open warfare. The absence of bullets cannot erase the presence of humiliation. A society divided by inherited castes may appear stable, especially if many have been persuaded that injustice is simply the natural order of things. Habit, after all, is among the strongest narcotics ever discovered. Men can grow accustomed to chains without ever making them jewelry. Likewise, imagine that every armed opponent of a stronger power laid down his weapons without condition. That, for example, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Syria have unconditionally surrendered to the invaders, Israel. Imagine that these territories were conquered, their populations subdued, and all resistance extinguished. The newspapers might triumphantly announce that the war has ended. Yet if one people ruled another without equal dignity, if fear replaced consent, if domination stood where mutual recognition ought to stand, then war would indeed have ceased, but peace would still be waiting outside the gates. For war is not merely the exchange of violence. War begins much earlier, at the moment one man ceases to see another as fully human. The battlefield is only the final punctuation of a sentence that has already been written in the heart. Long before armies march, imaginations have already surrendered to the pleasant fiction that some lives matter less than others. Justice itself, admirable though it is, cannot wholly replace peace. Justice is a scale balancing rights and wrongs. Peace is a table at which former enemies may one day sit together. Justice can punish the guilty, but peace must restore the possibility that men who once hated each other might again recognize a common humanity. Justice is indispensable because wrongs must be named. But peace is indispensable because human beings must somehow continue living together after the naming. The paradox is that peace is both gentler and more demanding than victory. Victory asks only that one's opponent cease resisting. Peace asks that one cease despising him. It is comparatively easy to silence an enemy. It is infinitely more difficult to recover a neighbor. This is why prejudice is the oldest enemy of peace. It teaches us to classify before we encounter, to condemn before we understand, and to divide humanity into permanent camps of the worthy and the disposable. Once that poisonous arithmetic has been accepted, every cruelty appears merely administrative. The degradation of another becomes not a crime but a policy. True peace begins with an altogether scandalous proposition that every human being possesses a dignity which no government confers, no majority may revoke, and no military victory can abolish. The child, the stranger, the dissenter, the conqueror, the conquered, the believer, and the skeptic all possess a humanity that precedes every flag, every tribe, every race, every class, and every nation. If this is forgotten, then every treaty is written upon water. It is fashionable to speak of peace as though it were the reward awaiting us after all conflicts have been settled. It is nearer the truth to say that peace is the condition that makes a just settlement possible in the first place. Men do not become human because they have agreed. They are capable of agreement because they are human. The world will no doubt continue to confuse order with peace, submission with harmony, and exhaustion with reconciliation. Yet these confusions cannot endure forever, for the human soul stubbornly refuses to be measured by military maps or political decrees. It asks with inconvenient persistence whether it has been seen, respected, and loved as fully human. When that question receives an honest affirmative, peace has begun, even if many disputes remain. When that question receives a negative, no accumulation of victories, occupations, or enforced silences can produce peace, however complete the conquest may appear. For peace is not the absence of conflict, nor is it the triumph of justice. Peace is the presence of a moral vision in which every person is regarded, without prejudice, as fully human. Everything else is only an intermission between wars.